Today's program has been pre-recorded, so our phone lines are not open. Well, hey there, friends. Welcome to another exciting edition of Equip with Chris Brooks. I am absolutely thrilled that you've joined us today. Can you do me a favor? Strap on your seatbelt. We're going to navigate through the contours of culture, as always, with the lens of the biblical worldview on. But before we do that, let me remind you that this is the day that the Lord has made. He has given it as a gift so that you and I can rejoice and be glad in it. So let's do just that. Let's follow the words of the Apostle Paul. Let's rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. I always like to greet you with thank yous. So I want to start this week off by saying thank you to all of our friends and partners in ministry that prayerfully and financially support Equip. We could not be here if it were not for God's grace and your thoughtful generosity, both in prayer and in the stewardship of your gifts to Equip. So I want to say thank you. God has been so gracious through your generosity to help us to not only meet budget, but to be able to reach more people, because on the other side of your generosity are real lives, real people who are being touched by the gospel of Jesus Christ. You know our mission to equip Christians to more effectively live, share, and defend their faith. We are in need of about 12 friends who can stand with us and say, I'll stand with you with a gift of $100. Or someone may say, the Lord has blessed me and this program has blessed me and I can do more. However the Lord speaks to your heart, gifts large or small, I would ask that you would consider that. The phone number to call, if you'd like to support the program, is 888-644-4144. That's 888-644-4144. Or if it's easier, go to equipradio.org and just know that we appreciate you so much. From the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you. Well, today I could not be more excited about our guest and our topic. You know, the mission, again, is to equip Christians to live, share, and defend their faith. As we think about what it means to live out our faith as 21st century Western Christians who live in a technological age, one of the biggest areas of focus for you and I individually and for the church broadly is what has been labeled digital discipleship or digital formation. How do we relate to the technology that affords us so much access and, for lack of a better way of putting it, power to be able to order our lives? But what are the trade-offs that come along with that? And how do we turn a tool into something that is actually used for the good in redemptive ways, as opposed to something that actually steals and robs our soul? I want to talk about that and explore Andy Crouch's new book, The Life We're Looking For, Reclaiming Relationship in a Technological World. Andy is someone that I admire deeply. He's the author of 4 books. He is a partner for theology and culture at Praxis as well, and he's joining me today. Andy, how are you, brother?
I am doing great and so happy for the chance to talk today.
Yeah, I'm grateful for the book. I think I want to start with asking how it relates to one of your most popular and best-selling books, and that is The TechWise Family. How does this book, The Life We're Looking For, relate to the TechWise Family for those who have that book?
Right. That book was and is, a very, very targeted, practical book for people who are in the midst of parenting. And it turns out there's a lot of those people who want help with technology and
That's
family.
right.
So that book, a lot of people have read it. A lot of 12-year-olds think it's the book that is the reason they can't have an iPhone. but it's not really about parenting by limits. It's really about what we deeply want. But this book, The Life We're Looking For, I would say is about the big picture behind the struggles that our families are having. So there are some very specific questions and issues that are coming with parenting these days, and we can definitely talk about those. But I felt like it was important to step back and look at the much bigger picture of what technology is doing in some ways to our whole culture and to us at every stage of life, not just children or young adults and parents. So this is like the deep story behind the conundrums we all sense if we're in the parenting stage, or really that all of us are feeling about our personal lives. There's something deeper going on. And that's what I was trying to get at in this book.
There's something about an undercurrent that is happening and we hardly notice it. And that's what this book
Hmm.
brings out is some of the undercurrent, if you will. I want to just affirm for those who do have the TechWise family that this is not just a repackaging of those ideas. This really gets at something deeper and the longings of our heart and soul and how we were created by
Hmm.
a very purposeful God. Let me ask the question of who did you write this for? I know in some ways every author wants to
Hmm.
say, well, for everyone.
Everyone.
But I really do believe in reading your other books that this one seems to be different in who you wrote it for. So I'll let you explain.
Oh,
Who did you have in mind?
that's so interesting. You're picking up on something real. Now, in one way, it's not that different. All my other books, except maybe for the TechWise family, I almost always have one reader in the very center of my attention. And it's someone, I think of it as a young woman. It could be a young man as well, but she's about 25 years old. You know, the 20s are this time of taking responsibility for your life. You're out in the world. There's no more script. You know, maybe you went to college, but you're done with that, and you're trying to chart your course, and you're realizing you're responsible for all kinds of things and part of a story that goes way deeper than you thought. And so I'm always writing above all for that. I would say faithful reader. That is someone who really wants to apply faith to their
Mm.
lives. And I also feel like 25 is the age every American secretly wants to be anyway. Like if you're 15, you wish you were 25. If you're 45, you definitely wish you were 25 again.
I
So
was
I figure
so
if I
dumb
can,
at 25, though. I was so
oh,
dumb.
well, but if you had my books.
That's right. That's true. That's true.
So yeah, so I always have that ideal reader in mind, but there is a difference in this book. I actually changed publishers. I went with a New York publishing house, an imprint of Penguin Random House, because I wanted to write a book that was definitely deeply Christian. You don't get to the end of this book and wonder whether I'm a Christian or what I believe. But especially in the opening pages, like the first 150 pages, I'm trying to make an argument really about what technology is, how it's shaping us, how it's misshaping us, what we're missing in a technological world that really anybody could read and that any Christian could hand to their neighbor and say, you know, this speak to you the way it does to me? Because I think it will address some questions that you're feeling, not just ones that only Christians have. So
That's
the
good. That's good.
audience over the shoulder audience is a broader audience, and even to the very end of the book I try to not assume that my reader shares my faith, even though I definitely lay out like why I believe the resurrection of Jesus and the community that follows Jesus is the big deal and the good news for the world. I'm trying to do it in a way that a non-believing reader would actually be able to read all the way to the end and say, I don't know if I believe all this, I don't know if I agree, but I wanted to keep reading.
Some of my Anglican listeners might know the name Tish Harrison Warren, and
Hmm.
she writes an endorsement for your book. She says this: as I read this as I read this breathtaking book, I was surprised to find myself tearing up often, not because it is a book about tragedy or loss, but because Andy Crouch, perhaps more than any other writer of our day, perceives and names the deepest and most vulnerable longings of the human heart. I guess the question I have for you is this a common response you're seeing, and why do you believe that the book is so emotional? I mean, it's a book about technology.
I know. This is the great surprise to me. Probably the most common thing early readers of the book have said is it made me cry. And I didn't set out exactly to do that, but I did set out the deep question behind this book is essentially, what is it to be human? What is it to be and more specifically, what is it to be a person? I start out the book by talking about our quest for recognition as babies. The very first thing we look for is another face who will recognize us and attend to us and care for us. And in their face, we're going to sort of see reflected our emotion and our vulnerability and our possibility, you could say. But I think through the whole book, I keep coming back to this very fundamental question of what are we meant to be at our best? And then the gap between what we all, I think, know we were meant to be and the diminished or dwindling lives that it feels like we have in a world that in some ways is full of so much power, because our technology is genuinely amazing and allows us to do all kinds of things that our grandparents or great grandparents couldn't have imagined. But we don't seem happier than them, to be honest. Yeah. And so I think that's why it ends up being a very emotionally touching book for people, is that there is this sense of loss in the modern world that we really need to pay attention to. But it's connected. It's not just, as Tish says, it's not just about tragedy. It's about something we could recover and reclaim. And I actually wonder if there's a lot of hope in this book as well. And I wonder if partly it's that combination of like realizing how much has been lost along the way and yet feeling hope reawaken. Maybe that's why people call me and say, I was crying at the last page. And it's not because the last page is sad. The last page is incredibly hopeful, but it's in the context of some loss for sure.
Well, it certainly takes faith to believe that we can recapture what has been lost, because there's certain times when the mountain seems so great to climb that you wonder, can we get a sense of community back again, personhood back again, deep and meaningful relationships back again? I'm glad you bring these things up, because I was going to ask a question, and I don't want to sound extreme. I don't want to sound hyperbolic. I don't want to sound as if I am trying to unnecessarily sensationalize the conversation. But is it an exaggeration, in your opinion, for me to say that we are experiencing an epidemic of loneliness?
Oh, that's not an exaggeration. That's very, very well documented at this point. And I think it's maybe the most distinctive thing about the world we're living in. So no, epidemic is, far from hyperbole. And lots of people see it, from many different angles. And maybe the most distressing thing is how much of it is affecting young adults. The indices of teenage and young adult mental and emotional health in many dimensions. It's not just loneliness or described or self-reported loneliness. We're especially the last 10 years, there's just been a rapid hockey stick like increase in affliction, really, at the emotional, relational level of human beings, especially among the young. And of course, I think this is because they are more exposed with less preparation to the technological world we've built than those of us who are a little older, who grew up with fewer layers of technology. Anyone listening to this has lived in a technological reality our whole lives to some extent. But the younger you are, the less buffers you have, and the less buffered your world was. When I was a kid, there was a TV in the house, and the TV was a mixed thing for human flourishing, I would say. But there was one TV, and the family usually watched it together. Well, then you get a generation who grew up with TVs in their bedrooms. Now you have a generation who have phones in their bedrooms. And at each level here, we're removing buffers. We're removing kind of seasons of life where you're not exposed to the full onslaught of the technological kind of logic. And I think that's why we see the most pronounced, and it is no exaggeration to call it an epidemic. It's the most pronounced among the youngest, or at least once kids hit kind of 10 to 12 years old, they start to express forms of distress at scales that we have not seen ever in the history, at least of this country. I'm not familiar with like worldwide statistics on this, but in the United States, it is absolutely, what's happening is absolutely cataclysmic. And it's happening across class, it's happening across race, it's happening wherever kids are exposed in an unbuffered way to technology.
Friends, this is a conversation you don't want to miss, and you want to join this conversation. When we come back, I want to share, Andy, a personal lesson that I've recently learned in this particular arena. Maybe you're wondering where tech fits in your life, how it's shaping your heart, how it's shaping your family and your household. We're going to talk about all of that today. Much more to come. Next up on Equip with Chris Brooks. Do you struggle to connect with your adult child? How do you navigate the pain in a broken parent-child relationship? Dr. Kathy Cook's book, Resolve Conflict and Find Peace and Hope with Adult Children, offers compassionate guidance with real conversation strategies that work so that you can move from conflict to restoration. Request your copy today when you give a gift of any amount to Equip. Give at 888-644-4144 or give online at equipradio.org. Chris Brooks here, reminding you that today's program is pre-recorded and we won't be taking your calls. Welcome back to Equip with Chris Brooks. Andy Crouch is my guest today. We're talking about his newest book, The Life We're Looking For, Reclaiming Relationship in a Technological Age. You can find out ordering information at our website. Go to equipradio.org. That's equipradio.org. Click on program details. You'll find ordering information there. As always, our social platforms are available to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just a personal story. Recently, my oldest son did something that he shouldn't have done, and that's not important, not anything too serious. But the consequence of that is he doesn't have a lot of tech, but he has some, and some video game devices. So my wife and I said, okay, for the next 30 days, none of those things are going to be, available to you. And one of the things that's been interesting, Andy, is seeing how he has filled that time, how we have filled that time, how he has filled that time. Because I realized that though this was a consequence for him, it really had broad implications on me as well. But what's been really neat is that he has taken up drawing and art.
Wow.
And he already had an art kit that my mother-in-law was an art teacher for many years. So she passes that love for art down to our kids and her grandkids. And so it's been interesting seeing him spend hours drawing, working on various drawings, and seeing his improvement just even over a couple short weeks. And it just causes me to wonder, Andy, what is being suppressed within me, within others, because of tech. And again, tech is powerful and beautiful and amazing in so many ways. And we'll get to the redemptive part. We'll get to the good things we can do, because I think the book is fair. I don't read the book as condemning tech. I think it's about putting it in its proper place. But back to the question, what are we suppressing maybe? Because of the amount of technology in our lives.
Yeah. One way I would put it is that technology is actually very good for production and consumption, but it's not very good for creation and formation. So production and consumption, that is getting things out in the world at scale, like we're doing right now. We're using technology, radio, and actually internet to connect the two of us and our voices, and it's good. And then your listeners are benefiting hopefully from this conversation. And production and consumption are part of the human calling to make something of the world, right? To be God's image bearers. And so when technology helps with that, I have no problem with it. But what you're discovering with your son is there's this other thing that is not about consuming, but is about creating. And then behind creating is being formed into a different kind of person. So acquiring skill to draw, right? If you can watch cartoons for the rest of your days and you'll never be able to draw an animated figure, right?
Right.
And I, in fact, well, I haven't watched cartoons my whole life, but I can't draw. I'm sure your son at this point draws better than I do, because he's been forced into a formative activity that is the practice of drawing, right? Which is actually expanding his ability to create. And not to jump to conclusions too quickly, but we could imagine that a 30-day, imposed fast like this might possibly set him on a path. One day, what if one day he's a professional illustrator, right? Well, if he is, he'll then use technology to produce and distribute what he does, publishing, electronic distribution, whatever. And technology will serve very well in that way. But all the formation and creation happens without tech, almost all. Because to be shaped into the kind of person who actually has something to offer the world, technology can't help with that. And that is what I worry we're missing out on in a very deep way. We're missing out on all these experiences that in some ways we would have had no choice but to engage in before we had the option of media and social media and all the ways we can distract ourselves and all the things that also give us very quick hits of rewards. Video games, boys in particular love video games because boys are really motivated by mastery. They want to feel like they're making a difference in some environment and that they know what they're doing. And it's hard to be an 11-year-old in the real world. It's a lot easier to be an 11-year-old in the world of video games. You know more of what's expected of you. You can learn the way the game works. You can become really good at it really quickly. Not nearly as quick to do that sitting with some art supplies and some paper. But in the long run, the formation that's going to happen in these 30 days is amazing. So what an amazing story. And interesting question. Should we maybe withdraw the video games more often?
Yes. And,
or is it a punishment even?
And again, I'll just simply say that there's an entire segment that could be filled up in the humbling lessons I'm learning about myself as well. Because just one point that I realized, I do believe that our kids broadly, in particular, certain personality types are wired for adventure. I don't want to over stereotype by gender, but I do think certain personality types are wired for adventure. And I do realize that so often, I guess to put it bluntly, that my kids are settling for technology in the absence of adventure. Maybe to say it more specifically, that if I invited them on more adventures with dad, and that adventure doesn't have to be extreme outdoor racing or anything. That could be, hey, we're going to go and try to fix something, or we're going to go and try to go and figure out walking this trail or something like that. That I think they would actually choose that over tech. Are you finding that with teenagers, with kids, that if an option is there, they pick the alternative?
Oh, yes. My daughter, Amy, wrote a book called My TechWise Life that was a follow-up to the book, The TechWise Family. And she and the Barna Group did some research specifically on this. And one of the most poignant and sort of sad graphs in the whole book is a series of questions where kids are asked, which would you prefer? And they're given options like go and play outside versus play a video game, let's say, or get together with your friends in person or talk with your friends. And when you ask them what would they prefer, you would be so encouraged at what they prefer. They consistently prefer what in this book, The Life We're Looking For, I talk about is heart, soul, mind, strength activities, like whole life engagement. Going for a walk, they prefer to sitting at home. Playing outside with their friends, they prefer to playing video games, even with their friends. Being present in person, all these things they prefer. But then Amy and the researchers asked them with the same list of things, which do you most often do? And then it completely flips. The thing they spend their most time on is video games. The way they spend time with friends most often is texting. So there's this gap between what they wish their lives were like and what their ideal life is like. And then what, in fact, they find. I think you use this really, accurate phrase. We all settle for a kind of a substitute that has some of the same qualities and fills in for the thing we really want. But the only thing I would add is that once we're inside that activity, it has a kind of addictive power. I call it the superpower zone in the new book. The superpower zone is this place where you once you get in there, you're like, oh, well, this is very satisfying. I'm getting something done. I feel connected. I feel alive. Yes. But it's within a technological frame that if you stepped back and had the chance to choose, you wouldn't actually choose it. But once you're inside it, you don't want to leave, which you find out when you try to get your 10-year-old to come to dinner from the video game. Like, the truth is they want time with mom and dad, but once you're inside that technological activity, it's very, addictive is a strong word, but it creates a sense of dependency and unwillingness to choose something different.
The chapter 3 of your book, The Superpower Zone, is subtitled How We Trade Personhood for Effortless Power. Tech is cheap, it is often convenient, and it is addictive. What is a person? We're going to take up that question when we come back, and we're also going to press into the question, what do our kids want most from us as parents? So much more to come next up on Equip. I want you to use these breaks, though, to order the book, maybe for yourself, maybe for a group, The Life We're Looking For. Next up on Equip with Chris Brooks. In today's rapidly changing culture, Christians need solid biblical guidance more than ever. That's our mission here at Equip, to provide biblical wisdom for life's toughest questions. When you step in as an equipper, you're not just giving. Your monthly support helps to offer clarity and hope to a confused and anxious culture. And you'll get exclusive resources and updates from us all year long. Join our team of monthly supporters today. Call 888-644-4144 or visit equipradio.org. Chris Brooks here, reminding you that today's program is pre-recorded. While we won't be taking calls, we do want to connect with you on social media. Well, hey there, friends. Welcome back to Equip with Chris Brooks. So grateful for this day, getting a chance to review a phenomenal book that I would say should be a cornerstone resource for your thinking on how to manage technology and digital discipleship in your life and in the life of your family. It's called The Life We're Looking For: Reclaiming Relationship in a Technological World. Andy Crouch is the author. We're also asking for you to consider partnering with us prayerfully and financially, and I really do mean that in both aspects. We need your partnership, your friendship, and your support. You can find out more if the program's been a blessing to you by going to our website, equipradio.org. That's equipradio.org. I want to go to Sydney, who's listening in Chicago. Hey, Sydney, thank you so much for listening. What's your comment?
No, thank you all. I was talking pertaining somewhat to the book that you all were discussing a little while ago. Technology. Technology is great, but then again, it's bad. My son knows all about technology.
Yes.
I mean, it says here, Ecclesiastes 1:18 reads, "For in much wisdom is much grief, and he that increases knowledge increases sorrow."
Yes.
So they
I think we're losing you, Sydney. You're breaking up a little bit there, but I really appreciate what you're saying, brother, and so grateful for your use of Ecclesiastes. Sydney has a lot of wisdom there. Andy, what do you think about his comment?
Well, what I really appreciate about it is sometimes you hear people say technology is neither good nor bad. It's just neutral, and it then depends on how we use it. And I that's not how I think about it as a Christian. I think technology is. I love what Sydney said. It's great because it is actually part of image bearing. It's part of our when God created the world. Once the image bearers are in the world, God says now it's very good. And I would say technology is very good. Because it is based on the goodness of the world that God made. But just like other parts of creation, when it is made an idol, when it's made something that substitutes for or deforms the true image of God and becomes a false image, then it's not just neutral, then it's now really bad. It's really dangerous. And I think it's actually never neutral. So I really appreciated that way of framing it rather than sort of thinking, oh, well, this is just something that is sort of just in the air or in the water. No, it's either part of our image bearing in a very deep, profound, good way, or it's going to become part of systems of idolatry that are actually very damaging. And it's probably not going to be in the middle.
Sydney, thank you so much for adding so much wisdom to the program today. Maybe you're listening, you have questions for Andy, what a gift it is to have him with us for this short amount of time, or maybe you're wondering, man, how is technology impacting my own soul or my home, and how do I reclaim relationship, which I think is the promise of the book, the hope of the book at least. It seems to me that, Andy, you want to abolish a particular term or concept, and that is the concept of the digital native. Why is that?
Yes, you hear this phrase quite a bit now. People say, "Oh, well, young people today, there's digital natives. Like they just know how it all works, and they're comfortable in this world. And other people are like digital immigrants. They just have arrived. They're not fully
Yes.
comfortable." And first of all, empirically, there's a great deal of data now that show that young people are they're not at ease in this technological world that they feel forced to live in. So they don't feel now they're very good at using it because it's like survival, a matter of survival to be a teenager today, to know how to handle different social media and so forth. And also, technology, frankly, is designed to be fairly easy to use. So it's not that impressive if you're good at it. It's because people say, "Well, my 2-year-old figured out how to use an iPad." I'm like, that's because it's designed to be easy for a 2-year-old. It's not a great achievement. So they are very able to use it. They feel pressured to use it, and so they get good at it to handle the pressure. But they're not happy with it. And then the deeper truth, and this is why I really want to get rid of the phrase digital native, is no child arrives in the world looking for a screen. We arrive in the world looking for a face. We arrive in the world looking for relationship, for love, for a place where we can be fully ourselves. And the screen will never provide that. It never provides full humanity. It allows for the expression of certain parts of our humanity, and in the right place, that can be very good. But it's no substitute for the world we all actually were born into and were born looking to flourish in. So I do not like this phrase digital native because it implies, oh, well, so we don't need to worry about them
Yeah.
or we need to learn from them how to use it. No, they
Or
are
this
just
is
as
natural to
disoriented.
them.
Or this is natural.
Yeah.
And the truth is, the first time most kids are handed a screen is a time when they're in distress. It's when the 2-year-old is strapped into the back of the car and you're trying to get to the grocery store. Sometimes it's often when the parents are in distress, we hand the kid a screen.
Yes.
And what they learn is when life is hard, this thing will make it a little easier. But it's not what they reach for when they want the best in life, when they're not in distress. And that's true at every age. So yeah, let's not think we're dealing with digital natives. They're not. You haven't ever met a digital native. Everybody's an immigrant to this kind of idol-filled world, and everyone's trying to make the best of it. And the kids are very smooth at making something of it. But when you ask them to reflect on it, they're not. It's not where they want to live.
Well, the book opens with what you said earlier, that when we're born into the world, what we're looking for is not a tablet, but a face. The book also challenges us to, I shouldn't say challenge, that's a negative way of putting it. It invites us to bring more of ourselves to our relationships, heart, soul, mind, strength. How do we do that in a technological age?
Well, I do love, of course, this is the greatest commandment according to Jesus. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And I love this word all of those 4 things, because those 4 words are sort of components of what it is to be human. You've got emotion, you've got reason, you've got physical capacity, and then you have soul, which is kind of depth of self, and heart, soul, mind, strength. But this word all, I think it is an invitation and maybe a challenge too, to develop those. Because if I'm going to love, I'm going to have to develop emotional capacity. That would be develop my heart. If I'm going to love well, I'm actually going to need to develop my mind. If I'm going to love God well, I need to develop my ability, for example, to like read scripture and really dig into it and question it and learn from it. And that's developing the mind. If I'm going to love well, I need to develop whatever physical capability I have. So one of the invitations of this book is first to recognize that technology mostly doesn't help us develop these capabilities. At best, it helps us express whatever we've got. But if you want strength, like, there are these late night TV ads that purport to show you things you can just attach it to your body and plug it in and it'll do something. We all know those don't work, right? The way you develop strength is you go to the gym or you do some body weight workout at home, which is what I do. I don't have time to go to the gym, but I really need
truth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's no device. In fact, we've learned like those fitness machines that they have at the gym, you probably should stay away from them because the more machines are involved, the less the body actually develops, like free weights, body weight, complex movement rather than simple movement. All these things we've learned are better for the body. It's actually the same thing for our minds, same thing for our emotional capability, same thing for our soul. So to love with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength is going to require us to invest in the things, the activities, the ways of being that actually develop those. And until we've developed them, what do we have to love with? And I actually think this is the deep problem right now is we've got such diminished people that when we try to love, we're loving with very little of all these components, when in fact, God intends us to just constantly be growing in all four.
What is personhood? When you refer to personhood, what do you mean?
Yeah, it's the heart of the book, and it's a deep, deep question. I mean, the most basic thing I would say is to be a person is to be a heart, soul, mind, strength complex designed for love. That is, we are all, you can't miss out on any of these four parts, and they can't be totally separated from each other. My brain and my body are intertwined. My emotions and my reason are intertwined. And to be a person is to have these capabilities, but have them all designed for connection with others, for love for others, and of course, connection with and love for God. I mean, that's the heart of the matter.
Yes.
And then the reality is also to be a person is to be built for recognition. It's to be built for relationship. And so anything that attenuates, that sort of causes that diminishes our heart, soul, mind, and strength is a problem. And anything that cuts us off from other human beings and doesn't give us the opportunity to really know other people and be known by other people is a problem. And the truth is, a technological world is not really built to make personhood better or to help persons flourish. It's made for other purposes, not the flourishing of heart, soul, mind, strength complexes designed for love.
Let's go to Michelle in Fort Lauderdale, Florida before our next break. Michelle, thank you so much for calling, for your patience. What's your comment?
Well, first of all, I was on my way back from jury duty and heard this conversation and couldn't help but call because I'm so passionate about it. I work with young adults from 18 to 23 years old in independent living. Some are coming from homelessness and some are coming from foster care. And I find that this topic is so relevant to what I'm working with as a residential case manager. A lot of our young adults, just to talk to them and know they don't have a friend or they don't have anyone that they can connect with. I see the ability to be able to have a relationship like, the author was talking about is just being affected so much about technology because they spend time creating their own world to the point that they even pour out their resources and things into buying art that they can't necessarily put their hands on, but it's in the computer, like things that are just buying a T-shirt and you can't wear it. Like it's almost like it absorbs them, into, and it's idolatry at its max. And so just the ability to be able to connect with these young adults and show them some form of love, which some of them may not have known because of the trauma or whatever they've come out with. But I do know that from learning in mental health that the opposite of creativity is underachievement. And so we could have a whole generation that continues to be suppressed and not really live out truly what God designed or created them to do if they can't do the things that he's talking about with that personhood, being able to connect to the next person, being able to, find some real reality outside of, the gaming or the things that they're, in tune with. And also just the ability to learn to trust someone else. Which, if you haven't had that ability, you can't, it's hard for me to say, there's a God that loves you when there's no sense of trust whatsoever.
Or relating.
Or
relating to another person. Michelle, you sound like you could be Andy's co-author.
No kidding.
But you are a profound gift to the young adults you serve. But yet I sense in your heart the overwhelmed feeling that we all have when we're talking about this topic. I want you to stay on the line. Our producer is going to get your information, Michelle. I'd love to send you a complimentary copy of Andy's book. I believe it'll be a blessing to you and to those you serve. For the rest, I would encourage you now to use this break to go to our website to learn how to order the life we're looking for. We'll be right back. Not every parenting challenge ends when your kids grow up. Sometimes the hardest season is when they're adults. Resolve Conflict and Find Peace and Hope with Adult Children is a book by Kathy Cook that helps parents grieve what's been lost, reset expectations, and pursue healing with wisdom, prayer, and grace. We'd love to send you a copy today with a gift of any amount to equip. Simply call 888-644-4144 or visit equipradio.org. Today's program has been pre-recorded, so our phone lines are not open. Welcome back to Equip with Chris Brooks. Senator Ben Sasse says this about the life we're looking for, that it's a thought-provoking look at the subtle daily trade-offs all of us make between comfort and fulfillment, shallow connection, and deep relationship. We're all yearning for deep relationship. That's why I highly encourage you to get a copy of the book. You know, I've been talking about reading the book as an individual, but it dawned on me that maybe the best way to read this book is in the context of relationships. Maybe a life group at your church, maybe your family reading it together. But I would encourage that it would be read as a group and discussed along the way. You can find out ordering information for the life we're looking for by going to our website, equipradio.org. Again, click on program details and order a group of these books, a bunch of these books. I believe it'll be a blessing to you. And I really do believe it should be a cornerstone in your library as you think about how you want to properly order technology in your life. This is also a book that, Andy, I've heard you say that you would, maybe even more than your other books, encourage folks to consider buying for the non-Christian friends in their life. Is that correct?
Yeah, very much so. Because it's actually, as much as it's about technology and personhood and the things we've talked about, as you know, it's also actually a story of how a renewal movement arose 2,000 years ago in a world that was also a very lonely, impersonal world. And that's of course, the early Christian movement, but I sort of zero in on this one community. I really appreciate what you just said, like reading this book with other people. I would love to see that happen because it's actually how a group of people lived in a very countercultural way in the midst of the Roman Empire that gives us hope that we could live in a different way in the midst of a technological empire. And I think this book, it doesn't talk so directly about God that I think a non-believer will feel uncomfortable, but it talks a lot about what believing in God and in the good news of Jesus actually does to reshape the way we live. And I hope and expect that that's going to be surprising and intriguing to people who may not currently consider themselves Christian. So yeah, I do hope it will go beyond just our faith community, you might say.
It invites a conversation that leads to us pointing to the cross of Christ. I want you to, maybe this is a way we can end this conversation. I want you to answer a question for me about why my daughter was sad about something. This Easter, we normally, as a family, we're the host house. We typically will invite over my wife's siblings and their kids, and my siblings and their kids, our parents. But this year was a little bit different. My brother has relocated to Georgia, him and his family. My brother-in-law and his family, they were on vacation. And we didn't host. And my daughter was shocked and saddened by the fact that there wasn't going to be this big Easter dinner with all these wild, crazy people running around the house and leaving a mess, and that's another conversation. But why do you think she was sad about that? Why do you think the fact that the family wasn't going to be all together, robust and loud and eating together was a loss for her?
I'm sensing maybe you were a little happy to have a quiet weekend.
There's a lot there. There's a lot there.
I know the feeling. When our two kids went off to college, people asked me what the empty nest is like. I said, an empty nest is a clean nest.
It is a clean nest. That's right. That's right.
But I think this reflects actually a pretty important theme of the book, which is the family, the nuclear family, which is an important part of God's design for human flourishing, is actually only part of the picture. And in the book, I talk about what the ancient world had, the Greco-Roman world, where the first Christians, where Christianity began, had these things called households that were much bigger than just a nuclear family. You would have a so-called pater familias, the head of the household, and their children, the man, the wife, the children, but then there would be all these other people, often extended family, often people who weren't necessarily related by biology, but were sort of part of the household. And I actually think we are made to live in these extended families, both literal kin, but also the sort of new kin that we get through being part of the body of Christ.
Yes.
And so it makes so much sense to me that maybe especially on Easter, a feast, a festival time, that your daughter thought, I want the household here. I want the bigger family, because that's actually what we're made for. And that's where personhood flourishes, is in that bigger family that we were made for.
I'm certainly glad that she missed it and that there's a longing in her heart for it.
Yes.
And I think we're all wired for that. Let's not suppress that longing. Let's dig into deep relationships. Let's reclaim them. Andy's book will show you how to do it. Go to our website, equipradio.org. Until we're together again next time, remember, Equip with Chris Brooks is a production of Moody Radio, a ministry of Moody Bible Institute.